Welcome back to Cable 10 Live. I'm your host, Nanwa. Tomorrow night at the Brampton Rose Theatre, Brampton City Council will be making their final decision regarding the LRT, the Huron-Ontario main line that's been proposed by the province. And joining me to talk about this in further detail, I have from Stand Up for Brampton, Paul Vicente, as well as from One Brampton, Andrew DeGroot. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long, winding road, I must say. No pun intended. I know we're talking about transportation here, but you know, this decision was supposed to be made, if you look back early in the summer. We now are deep into the fall, and the province looks like, hey, they're telling the council, make a decision because time is ticking. We need to get things moving. And Andrew, provide the viewers just what kind of led up to tomorrow, because I think a lot of people are just still wondering. We're still talking about this?
Yeah, well, if you go back, this process started like in 2004.
Yes.
And the province reached out to both Mississauga and Brampton and said we want to build this transportation through the two neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And there have been numerous public consultations and numerous meetings with both city staff with Mississauga and city staff here, as well as councillors. Mm-hmm. And over a year ago, Mississauga approved it.
Yes.
With much less information than we have today. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, the Brampton Council continues to ask questions and continues to say they don't have enough information. And we have dragged on to the point that this project needs to move forward. You know, our partners in Mississauga have been waiting,
yeah.
have invested their part, and they're ready to go.
Definitely.
And you know, I don't blame the province for finally putting a stake in the ground and saying we need an answer by the end of this month, or they'll go without us.
Paul, would you like to add anything?
Well, I would just say that you know, this has been a long time coming since. The implementation of what we called originally the Acceleride, which was our bus rapid transit in Brampton. It always has been the long-term plan for Brampton to implement LRT when the ridership numbers merited it. You know, all along the Huron-Ontario Main Street route, the ridership numbers are very, very high. Mm-hmm. And you know, the planners know that it's time for us to upgrade the route. It's one of the most busy routes in Peel. And it's going to be a very important corridor now and going forward. And so Brampton will play a very important role in the interconnectivity that will be the Huron-Ontario Main LRT. Mm-hmm. And we are looking forward to Brampton City Council providing us with a yes decision tomorrow that we can then present to the province.
You know, especially since, like, there's so much emphasis around the need for transportation in the city, the need to get around, and you know, looking at this as the perfect link to link Mississauga and Brampton. Some individuals are just confused as to why there's so much dispute around it. Paul, share to the viewers what the opposing opinion is, because I think for a lot of viewers or a lot of individuals who live in Brampton, they think it's a great idea, but then there's a bunch of people that are against it.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. You know, in our downtown, we have a large number of historic homes.
Yes.
And I actually own a home, and I live in a historic home very close, almost adjacent to the Main Street route. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some of the folks that live there are concerned about the impact that the LRT will have. To their credit, Metrolinx has, in my opinion, bent over backwards to accommodate a lot of the concerns that the local residents have. For example, eliminating the right-of-way, making sure that the signage isn't overbearing.
Yeah.
They've went from 2 wires overhead to just 1, and they've assured all the homeowners along the Main Street route, especially where all these historic homes are located, that there will be no changes to the tree canopy. There will be no widening of the road. The sidewalks will remain as they are. And, you know, I think that that's very promising. Another big concern in Brampton is the festivals that we hold in our downtown core. For example, our farmers markets or some of the parades that we have there. And initially, folks were concerned that if the LRT is on a track and, you know, it has to go through the downtown, how can we possibly hold these special events? And so Metrolinx, you know, implemented a very clever switchback, which allows the train before it enters the downtown to switch over to the lane and to reverse back towards Mississauga.
Oh, wow.
Another plan that is now on the table is what we call the George Street Loop, which would offer even more ways in which the train could switch over to George Street and then drop off people in the downtown and then return southwards.
Yeah.
So, I'm very pleased to see all the work that Metrolinx has done to make sure that the historic portion of the downtown is affected as little as possible. Keep in mind that LRTs exist in historic cities and downtowns all over the world, and in some places that are even tighter than Brampton's downtown. And so, we're hopeful that once this is implemented and it's installed, it'll be as seamless as the buses and the cars are today.
Yeah. I had the opportunity of going to Calgary a couple weeks ago, and they have an LRT out there. And one thing I noticed with the LRT is it does a great job at just getting people around the city, whether it be the downtown core, whether it be the suburban areas, whether it be some of the countryside. It's very well connected, and a lot of the citizens who live in Calgary find it to be very convenient. One of the pieces of feedback that I've heard when it comes to the Brampton LRT is the Huron-Ontario main route the right route? Like, should we be maybe pushing for a route across Queen Street and Highway 7, or maybe a route down Steeles based on how busy those streets are? That's always been feedback that I've heard regarding the LRT route is the Huron-Ontario main line the most beneficial position for this? And Andrew, please provide your perspective.
Yeah, so the purpose of this LRT is to connect Mississauga to Brampton, two very, very closely connected cities. The line will go from the Lakeshore GO station up to the Brampton GO station.
Yeah.
And you typically build transportation in a straight line.
Yeah.
That line currently is one of the busiest in all of Brampton. It is the fastest growing line in Brampton.
Yeah.
And more people from Brampton work in Mississauga than anywhere else. So, on the surface, there are lots of good reasons for this. Then if you look forward and project out, Places to Grow legislation has suggested that downtown Brampton is a hub of growth.
Yeah.
And so are a lot of places along the Mississauga corridor. So these two areas are just going to get larger and larger. And the projections are there's going to be 34.5 million people riding this line in the future, which, if you look today, the entire GO network is about 50 million people.
Wow.
So, I think the ridership's there. It makes a lot of sense. But we're advocating, Brampton, that this is not the only. This is, don't build this and stop.
Yeah.
Queen Street is a very important corridor for Brampton to get us going east to our partners and neighbors east, as well as all-day two-way GO. So we see this as one of three priorities. This one's fully funded. This one is being delivered to us as a gift.
Yeah.
Let's take it, and let's then immediately advocate for the other priorities.
Cable 10 Live is a very interactive show, and we always urge our viewers to call in, provide their perspective. And we have a caller who called in, and we'll have to speak to both you, Paul, and Andrew, regarding the LRT. We have Delroy from Brampton. Delroy, thank you so much for tuning to Cable 10 Live. What is your thoughts on the LRT?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the LRT is a very good idea. But right here in my backyard, we're having a problem at Australia and Sugarcane. We have major accidents there, and we have got studies done on it, and nothing has been done about it. I want to know, what is the government doing about putting up stop sign there?
There's a question around an intersection where some issues have happened. But what I do want to make clear is that these individuals aren't government officials; they're community advocates. But what I also do want to pose to both of you is just, Huron-Ontario is a busy street.
Right.
A lot can happen on that street. We know there's talk of delays, and there's talk of anything can happen. What's some of the ways in which citizens can look at Huron-Ontario as this being a positive versus some of the congestion we're currently seeing?
Well, first of all, you're going to get 2,700 riders an hour moving out to 2031 at the peak, and that's 2,700 people not driving. So that right there is going to adjust a lot of the congestion. LRT is going to be in a dedicated line for the vast majority of the route with its own dedicated signals. So if you've ever been on the Spadina line, you get an idea of how that works.
Yeah, exactly.
They have advanced signals. It works in conjunction with all of the pedestrian crossings, so that there are no conflicts, and it runs very smoothly. Now, there likely will be accidents There are accidents when it's just cars. There's accidents when there's buses. There's accidents when there's, you know, whatever vehicle. So, you know, it's not a panacea, but I do see this as improving because it will be taking people away from their cars.
Delroy, I want to thank you for your phone call here on Cable 10 Live. And just another question I wanted to pose to both of you is, you know, there's this need in Brampton to really improve the downtown area. You know, we've heard talk of a potential college or university being placed in the downtown core. We've heard conversations about ways to extend it past, whether it be Main Street or extend it past Highway 7 and actually make it a legitimate downtown. How does the LRT benefit that? And Paul, would begin with you.
Well, you know, it's important to look back at the history of downtown Brampton.
Yes.
Downtown Brampton was the retail hub of the city before. I think with the advent of the big box stores that came in during the 80s, it kind of hollowed out the businesses there.
Yeah.
And so since that time, the businesses have been struggling. To their credit, all the councils that have come before have worked very hard to do and implement measures that would attract more people to shop in the downtown. But it's kind of been a long, hard grind because at the end of the day, there aren't that many people that live in the core. And so intensifying the core is one of the areas that the city is looking at doing. The problem being that because it is a floodplain, until the floodplain restrictions are lifted from downtown Brampton, it's going to be a challenge. But the LRT is one of the pieces of the puzzle that will make downtown Brampton a truly vibrant, livable, and accessible community. It will attract investment. It will make the downtown more accessible to the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, and will benefit the residents that live there, and therefore there will be a demand for folks to live, work, and play in that area. And so, you know, again, and I just want to reiterate, we're very, very hopeful that tomorrow members of City Council will be forward-looking and future-looking and use the LRT as one of the aspects that can truly revitalize downtown, that can bring more people to the downtown, encourage more folks to live there, and will spur business investment and will make the businesses that are there as successful as they can be.
You know, because as a Brampton citizen for a majority of my life, I always found the downtown area of Brampton be like the best kept secret in the city. Like it's, in the summertime, it's absolutely beautiful. You can go up to the patio, you know, enjoy some great food. There's always something going on at Gage Park. And the one thing I've always hoped for was that we get more traffic in that area. It seems like the LRT would be a great solution for that. What would you say? Actually, when we come back from commercial breaks, we do have to cut to commercials. We'll actually be airing a video that Paul you brought regarding the LRT, and I also want to get your discussion around the actual route itself. You know, there's some people that say, hey, the route's more in favor of Mississauga versus what's going on in Brampton, and I'd love to get both your perspectives on that. And we'll be right back here discussing the LRT on Cable 10 Live on Rogers TV Peel. Welcome back to Cable 10 Live. I'm your host, Nanwa. We are discussing the big LRT vote that will be happening tomorrow night at Brampton City Council at the Rose Theatre. But before we jump into the discussion, we will be actually airing a video made by one of our guests currently joining me on the panel, Paul Vicente for Stand Up for Brampton. It's a video in support of the LRT. And I just want to verify this is a video made from Stand Up for Brampton, and it's not something from Rogers TV, but do check it out and see his perspective.
Newborns tend to have erratic sleeping schedules, but typically rest 16 to 17 hours a day. Once fully grown, this child will only need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day to remain healthy, and that is more likely to happen if she has the option to use transit like the Hurontario Main LRT, provided, of course, that Brampton City Councillors make the right choice on October the 27th. Please contact your councillor and tell them, vote for the HMLRT. Vote for the future.
And That was a video provided by Stand Up for Brampton, and also one of our guests here on Cable 10 Live, Paul Vicente, and I'm also joined by, from One Brampton, Andrew DeGroot. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We just saw a bit of a comical take to the LRT vote that's going to be taking place tomorrow, and just, some of the importance around transportation. And before we jump into the discussion, Paul, how did you come up with the concept of the video, and how did you kind of come up with the message? Because at the end, it's a very strong call to action by telling individuals to contact their counselor and get their voice heard.
Well, transit is about being able to save time. It's about reducing gridlock. And I tried to come up with a very simple message that would get to the heart of the matter. How can we all get home a few minutes earlier every day? How can we reduce the time that we spend in our cars? And so transit is in part about that. It's about economical power, getting people to and from the places that they need to be at. But it's also about getting there faster, getting there more conveniently at lower cost. And so the commercial was intended to, yes, encourage the residents of Brampton to contact their representatives and to encourage them to vote. But it's also a little bit of an educational piece, because at the end of the day, transit doesn't just benefit the people who drive cars, in the sense that with less congestion, they can get home a little bit faster. It benefits the people who use it in a variety of ways. It lends to a healthier lifestyle, and it's more stress-free. You just get on, you can read a book while you're traveling on the train, and so forth. So the message of having more time to sleep, I believe, resonated with some of the people that have watched this video. It's had many views, and it's been successful.
Because if you think about it, there's always this push for transit because of car emissions. I mean, reducing the amount of cars on the road, and things will be a lot easier. People will be less stressed out. People will be less in a hurry all the time if they're in a vehicle. And you talk about having time to sleep when using transit. I remember, even simply when I used to work downtown and I would use the GO as my means to get to work, I used it as a great time not only to sleep, but maybe even start a new TV show. Like, I had that ability on my tablet to start new TV shows.
Because your mind and your hands are free.
Exactly, and you can really get in the zone when it comes to whether getting into your work day or getting into your daily routine. But talking about the route itself, and Andrew, I know you're someone that's been very vocal about this, and there's a lot of people who are maybe even on the fence regarding the LRT that are wondering, look, it's a route from Mississauga to Brampton under Ontario, but it actually benefits Mississauga more than it actually benefits Brampton because of the amount of stops. What's some of the feedback that you give individuals who are kind of like, hey, look, Mississauga's getting the better end of the deal here?
Well, first of all, this is a provincial project, and the purpose was to connect these two GO lines together. And we happen to have a smaller portion of that distance than Mississauga. So yes, we are going to get about 25% of the rail for this one particular line. But to say that it benefits Mississauga more than Brampton, I think is missing some important facts. One, the highest ridership in the entire line is downtown Brampton to the Mississauga border, and it drops off from there. But the main reason it is so high in Brampton is because Brampton residents work in Mississauga. Right? There aren't enough jobs in Brampton for our residents. So to say that it's only going to benefit Mississauga because we're heading south to Mississauga misses the point that if this wasn't there, if the transit wasn't there, if these highways and roads that connected us to Mississauga weren't there, we wouldn't have jobs in Brampton, right? Our people would be unemployed because there aren't the jobs here. So if we had more jobs, right, and if the LRT comes, downtown will be more vibrant. There will be businesses coming to the downtown, and you'll see some of the reverse. You'll see people coming from Mississauga up to work here, and you'll also see a lot of people from Brampton come to the downtown, which is more vibrant because of this LRT, and working locally.
It's almost like that example I gave you about, me going from Brampton to downtown for work. Same scenario. Like, I have a lot of people within my network that work in Mississauga but live in Brampton, and quite frankly, it may seem like it's a close car ride, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's very stressful because everyone's going in that direction. Everyone's going east, everyone's going west. So it's almost like, hey, it's great that I live in Brampton and I work in Mississauga, but the commute's still an hour. Like, this is almost a solution to kind of get past that.
Yeah, and Brampton Council has focused for years, for 25 years, they say, on improving the GO service. They want all-day two-way go.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that would benefit from that. But if you look at the stats in Peel, less than 12% of people who live in Peel go to Toronto work during the day. 67% of the people in Peel work within Peel.
Yeah.
So the priority should not be all-day two-way go. It should be moving people within Peel. And this is a great line to accomplish that.
Paul, you mentioned you live in downtown Brampton.
Yes, I do.
And one of the things I do want to mention to you is there is a concern around construction and just what it might be doing to the area while we're getting this LRT up and running. And one prominent example that was brought up was what's currently going on in Ottawa. There's been a lot of concern among shop owners in Ottawa who are on that Ottawa LRT line about congestion and just, about, how it's deteriorating away from business and how it's making it harder to move around. What's your feedback? Because being that you're a citizen currently living in downtown Brampton, what are you thinking when it comes to that?
Well, first off, because I live almost adjacent to Main Street, what will end up happening when construction begins is the street that I live on is going to be the main detour.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting
congestion.
Just a lot more traffic going by my home. And but that's just one of the facts of life when you're doing city building.
Yeah.
To say that we shouldn't subject the citizens of our city to construction for a project of this importance would, if you take that logically to its end, then we would have no road construction at all, and we would do no city building. And so, the short-term pain for the long-term gain, I think, is worth it. We know that the businesses will be impacted to some degree, but there are mitigation strategies that Metrolinx has said that they will put into play to make sure that the businesses can stay open and that they are accessible.
Yeah.
And so I'm very confident that they will be able to survive what will likely be a perhaps 1.5 year period that the roads are being worked on. Yeah.
Andrew.
And just to add to that, and a lot of the people that are against the LRT, either don't know or try to hide the fact that the sewer mains and water mains on Main Street in downtown Brampton have been delayed for a number of years because of this project. The roads are going to be torn up anyway.
Yeah.
There's going to be a year plus of construction on Main Street to fix those, and at the end of that construction period, you have a choice: better flushing toilets with the current plan, or better flushing toilets and an LRT.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a small increase in the aggravation for those businesses. So yes, there's going to be disruption. Yes, like other areas, there's going to be problems, but they're going to happen even if we say no to the LRT tomorrow.
Exactly. Just one last topic of discussion has to revolve around the community involvement we've been seeing when it comes to this issue. You've seen two firm stances regarding yes LRT, no LRT. There's been a lot of, recently there was a huge parade that happened. That was a huge rally that occurred regarding the LRT, and it seems like it's great from my perspective to see this many people care about the city of Brampton.
Yes.
But just explain quickly how that's made you guys feel, because both of your organizations kind of stemmed out of this one issue. And Paul, we'll begin with you.
Well, community engagement has been extremely high on this issue, both from the no and from the yes side, and that is always a positive. At one of the recent council meetings, one of the councillors remarked that she wished that people were always disengaged all the time on every issue. So the community engagement is a good thing, but to what Andrew was saying, it's important that folks have all the facts, and we want to make sure. We've been working hard to make sure that as this discussion has been happening, that people have as much of the facts as is possible.
Exactly.
With a project of this complexity, you're not going to get all the renderings and all of the maps that you would want, ideally. But Metrolinx has, done, I think, as good a job as is possible for them to give us the visuals and the concept and the numbers and all of the stats. And so members of council have had the ability to review all these materials for quite some time.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I wanted to thank both of you for joining us here on Cableton Live to talk about the LRT, and we'll definitely be watching tomorrow when a decision is made. We'll be right back after this brief commercial message.